My wife and I were greeted by our daughter about 6 months ago. And I live in Japan, and if you're not aware, Japan has a very intense work culture, which thankfully I'm not a part of much anymore. So on the first day I went to the hospital when my wife gave birth, they said, "Congratulations, Mr. McKenzie, on the birth of your daughter." On the second day, they said, "Wow, that's interesting. You took off a second day to be with your wife and child." And on the third day, they said, "Mr. McKenzie, are you unemployed?" And I said, "No, I'm the CEO of a software company." And they said, "Oh, great, he's unemployed and a liar." So to prove that I'm a CEO, I'm going to do what CEOs do best, which is plug my product shamelessly. Starfighter is a game that you play over the internet. We publish games which one plays by doing development work. We think that there's all sorts of people probably in this room, the folks who love the Twilio doers, as you say, who love just digging into a new API, making something work, and digging around in the ducts of a program, where this could be fantastic fun for you. Games are totally free. And we just kind of passively identify who's great at doing engineering work. Then we introduce them to our clients who are nationally recognized places that are looking to find good developers. So if you're interested in doing fun engineering projects in your spare time, take a look at our games when they're launching in about 6 weeks. If you're interested in hiring new engineers, please drop me a line. Okay, so if my daughter asks me in a few months, "Daddy, what does a CEO do?" I'd say, "Oh, that's impressive that you're talking when you're 9 months old." Okay, but my job is basically taking email, question mark, question mark, question mark, turning it into money. And we won't talk about the internals of the business. We won't talk about the money too much. Let's just talk about email, because I think this is something we can all relate to as people who are information professionals. We get crushing loads of it. There's emails coming internally from teams on status reports of the various projects. There's emails coming in as notifications. Somebody just pushed something to GitHub. We just got a new purchase. Someone canceled their plan. You just bought something for $47 from Amazon. There's emails going out to leads. There's emails going out to clients. You're asked for status reports. It's just absolutely insane. And how insane is it? I just sold a business and I had to migrate email accounts, and I realized that I had sent 96,000 emails, which was just a mind-blowing number to me. That's about 12,000 emails a year, or plus or minus 40 a day. And I'm not saying this to say, wow, I send more email than anybody, because I know there's people in this room probably that crush this number. I'm not saying it to say I have a great handle on email, because for most of my business career, I had a terrible handle on email. Email, the stress involved in my inbox was just crushing me. I was worried about a particular project, and that particular project was coming in over email, so I thought, if I just don't open my email client, I won't be stressed, which is not a good way long-term to decrease your stress, because then other things pile up like planes over O'Hare. So I want to tell you, as developers and as people in the technology industry, how we can better manage email. Because I came to the realization one day that, as someone with an engineering background, if I had designed my experience to email, I should never have another engineering job again. And here's why. Let me pitch you guys all on an API I want to hypothetically have you implement to your companies. Here's the spec. First, we're going to have totally unstructured, free-form textual data. We're only going to support one way of querying it, reverse chronological order. The messages will have no valid metadata about them, but they require the API to act within 5 seconds and a year, depending. Sometimes they don't have to get acted on at all. We won't tell you in advance, though. And we're not going to document the API at all to the users. You'd say, wow, you're crazy for proposing this. But this is the actual way we use email to manage work at our companies. So there's better ways to do that, and I'm going to show you some of them. It's worth mentioning why email took over the world. Email is probably the best example of worse is better. Everybody speaks email. Every firm has an inbox, many inboxes. All applications can speak email, and then they can interoperate seamlessly with that, which is wonderful for all the people in the world who aren't developers and wouldn't otherwise be able to hook an API up to something. For those of us in the room who are developers, we should be hooking up best-in-class APIs to some things that we do over email by default these days, for more efficiency, for having less stress, and for having more time to do the things that matter in our business, more time to do the things that matter in our lives, like spending time with our families, rather than just doing inbox management. So at the end of the day, here's what I want you to get out of email. Just use email for what it's really good at. And what email is really good at is when someone needs to put non-routine work on your plate, or you need to put non-routine work on somebody else's plate. So non-routine is important. If something is happening every day, we're going to have better processes to do that with than over email. And work is important too. I think one of the reasons that we feel so tied to our inboxes, we feel the need to have notifications on our phone and to be checking it 24 hours a day, is we think, what if an email happens and it's an emergency and I don't reply right away? And the answer is, if an emergency gets to your inbox, something has gone very, very wrong. It's just setting up an opportunity for failure in the future. So we're going to refactor those out of this cruddy API into better APIs. Then we'll be able to have the confidence to run our inbox in a more effective manner. And just like you would have if you had an API, you would say, here are our uptime requirements for the API. Here's a service level agreement to our API consumers and to our providers. And here are the expectations for throughput, rate limiting, yada, yada. You should have a service level agreement for email at your company. And you should explicitly tell this to people. Here's mine. You can tweak it to your taste. But I do email twice a day, at the start of every business day and the end of every business day. The words business day is important. I used to do email on the weekends. I was very stressed out about it because I thought, I'm the CEO of a company. I have to check email on the weekends. What if someone emails me on Saturday and I don't get back to them until Monday? They'll probably be ticked off. And then I was going through some health issues at one point. I said, okay, what if I just don't do email on the weekends anymore? But I would feel very bad about announcing to my customers that you're not important enough for me to check email on Saturday. All right, what if I just don't tell them I'm doing that? So one day I just decided, all right, I don't do email on Saturday anymore. We'll see if anybody notices. Nobody noticed. Like, ooh, that was good. What if I don't do email on Sundays either? Nobody noticed. I have considered not doing email on Monday to Friday too, but I think someone would pick up on it eventually. But you can definitely get away with not doing it on the weekends if you implement some of the later advice in this presentation. Emails in the inbox. 96,000 emails over 8 years. Do you think I actually read and replied to all of them? No. I got much better at email, much better about sending the replies that mattered and moving the business forward after I figured out it's probably okay if I don't read everything. If it was important enough to necessarily merit a reply, they will probably get back to me and ping themselves to the top of their inbox. And I tell people that. Like, plus or minus, I get to 80% of email in any given day, and if it gets off my plate in any given day, then I probably never get back to it. If you need me, ping me again. That works very well internally for setting expectations. It also works surprisingly well externally. So what about emergencies? I think we did cover this topic before. I won't repeat what I already said. Just train people that emergencies are supposed to come in on other lines of communication. If the server is burning down in a fire and you need to get in touch with me because I was the last person who sent code to it, pick up the phone, call me. If you send an email, I will get to it tomorrow. So a surprising amount of email when I looked at it was routine in-house communication. Me talking to employees about the status of their projects, routing particular requests to them, them asking me questions which did not need to be interruptive to me, but were because I had notifications on my phone, which, by the way, turn off notifications after you're done with this presentation. So a question like, when is the dev meeting this week? Has an easy answer. It's like, 11 o'clock on Thursday, whatever. But that doesn't need to be interrupted for anyone on the team. So for that sort of like non-time sensitive thing, it's nice to have a real-time chat where you can just like dribble out the information like that. Somebody who happens to be free right now can just say, oh yeah, it's at 11 o'clock. And the folks who are in like the coding haze or the coding zone, or they're out getting business done with the client, they don't have to feel interrupted by that interaction right then. And when they have downtime, they can catch up on what is passed as they go along. I'm not here to sell you on Slack, but really try Slack or try HipChat, try one of their competitors. It was absolutely revolutionary, both within my company and with other companies I've worked with, in terms of making internal communication more efficient. And some of the biggest tips I'm going to give you about email are plugging external communication from your vendors, from APIs that you need to monitor, from clients, so that they're piped into the right group in Slack, so that the kind of nerve center of the business can be in Slack channels rather than in email, and you have the email reserved for just the non-routine things. So every business that runs on Slack will eventually evolve Slack etiquette. Here's what we do. You can adjust this to taste. If we're just chatting, then we're just chatting. It's a water cooler chat. I have no expectations as the boss. If somebody makes an mention of your name, that's flagging this for you as soon as you get a minute free, but that is not drop what you're doing right now, I need you. We have one channel for every project. So for example, the dev team has a channel which they hang out in every time. And if there's something like a release happening in the next couple of weeks, then we have a release channel where anything specific to that release can go into the release channel. You're expected to have notifications on your key channels, but otherwise, it's at your discretion. If you want to be lightly involved in a project that isn't one of your core priorities right now, you can subscribe to the channel, catch up on it whenever it's good for you, but you're not expected to. And a very important thing about channels is channels are cheaper than meetings. It is totally okay if you are planning a team dinner tonight to spin up a channel for the limited purpose of where do we go to dinner tonight, talk about it for 5 minutes, all right, done, and then kill that channel. They're free at the margin. This resulted in 90% less internal team email, which is a huge reduction both in the inbox. It's a huge reduction in the amount of time you spend every morning trying to figure out what your priorities are for the day. And it's a reduction in the stress level because after I felt like I was more responsive to my team and they were getting the answers they needed from me when they needed them, I didn't feel quite the need to spend quite as much time tied to my phone answering emails. So another very common use case for email is using it as the API which speaks everything, can get routed from anywhere, and can go anywhere. And it's kind of cruddy for that. But this is a massive volume of the emails. Probably over 30,000 emails I've had over the years are just a computer somewhere attempting to talk to me in an automated fashion. If you are not a developer, email might be the best option for that. If you are a developer, we have APIs, we have ways to integrate. We should do that well. So I don't have great numbers for what APIs were trying to talk to me at what frequency, but it was basically a pyramid. So the smallest percentage of the notifications that were coming into my inbox were critical things that I had to deal with right now. It's the kind of, the server is on fire, our main application is down, that sort of thing, typically from a monitoring system. Then there was a larger group of stuff which didn't have to be dealt with right now, but did have a response required. For example, we got a chargeback from a customer, someone's billing failed this month, we need to get in touch with them so that they can update the new credit card information in the system. Or there was an exception in shipping something, we need to handle that. And then the largest portion of those emails were purely informative. We had a successful sale to a customer, FYI, here's the details. Where I would never actually have to read that on a day-to-day basis, but I might want to have that somewhere searchable later. Here's how you deal with this pyramid of criticality. For the emergency stuff, use APIs and immediately upgrade the emergency to an SMS or a call, which will always go straight through to your phone, notify you no matter what you're doing. For the stuff which is response required when it's reasonably convenient to you, you either send it to a dedicated app, we'll talk about that later, but for example, if it's a sales function kind of thing, like someone's a billing cycle has failed this month, then you send it to the CRM that the sales team uses every day, route it to their account manager, or you just route it into a Slack channel for that particular team. And for the informative stuff, you can either filter it in Gmail so that it never hits your inbox at all. You can send it to a Pulse channel, which this is something I like to have in Slack just to get around that managerial need for control of the business. One of the reasons that we have everyone giving us all these status reports is not because we need to have those status reports to do our jobs, but because we have this deep-seated psychological need to feel like, okay, I'm the boss. I have to know what's going on in the business. We want to kill that need eventually because I think that holds us back as managers. But as a sort of baby step towards killing that need, you can just make a Pulse channel in Slack and then route notifications to it. Like somebody did a push to GitHub, great, tell Pulse. Or someone moved a Trello card around, great, tell Pulse. And then once or twice a day when you're trying to keep your finger on the pulse of the business, you just open up that channel, scan things. It's like, all right, everyone's doing their jobs. Nothing's burning down, great. And now all those notifications, if 200 of them happen in a day, that isn't 200 times where you're picking up your phone just going, oh good, no emergency yet, no emergency yet, no emergency yet, no emergency yet, destroying your ability to actually get work done. And by the way, eliminating things is always an option. I have 16,000 emails sent, which were just confirmations of purchases sent to customers. realistically speaking, these are already reflected in a database somewhere. The accountant already has the information. The bookkeeper already has the information. The system that's in charge of provisioning this stuff for customers has the information. Why do I need this in my inbox at all? I should just turn that notification off. It was a big day when I realized that, yeah, that was the right call. So one of the reasons we have this culture of like sending too many notifications to ourselves from automated systems is what I like to call the Sherlock Holmes anti-pattern. I can't remember what book it was, but somebody asks Sherlock Holmes, how did you solve the case? And he said, well, the important thing was the dog. And they said, the dog didn't bark last night. He's like, exactly, that was what was important about the dog. So there's a lot of people who have notifications on where the important thing is not that the notifications are happening. The important thing is that someday when something happens, the notifications will stop happening and you will notice and react to them stopping happening. For example, if I get a notification every time a sale comes in, if I suddenly realize on Monday, wait, no sales came in on Monday and I would normally expect 20 a day, then I investigate whatever that critical issue was. And that makes sense when you're thinking about it to yourself. But if you think about that like a developer, that's crazy talk, right? Like, wait, a computer could tell as soon as the event stopped happening that the event had stopped happening. You're proposing to tell several days later in a non-deterministic way, which is a cruddy quality of service guarantee for this. And in return for like that cruddy quality of service guarantee, you are instead going to interrupt yourself multiple times every day for every day the business is in business. It doesn't work out so well. I'll show you ways to get around it. One of my favorite technologies, not to plug them, but to plug them, for decreasing the amount of inbox burden is Zapier, which basically allows you to tie any sort of event coming in from any API, basically in any business that's relevant to your business. Ties into Zapier, and then they can route that event to any other API which is relevant to your business, to a desired action that you want to make. The most common desired actions that I do are something like this. So my 3 favorite verbs on Zapier are send a Slack message, send an SMS, and send a webhook. So for example, for low criticality things, like someone signed up for our email list. Great, I might want to review that sometime, but I don't need to get buzzed about it at all. It just goes into this activity channel in Slack, which I don't get notifications on, but like if I notice, wait, usually we have about 100 updates a day. Today we had 1,000 updates. What happened? I'll scroll into Slack, and this actually happened recently. Scrolled into Slack, and it was like a whole lot of people are signing up with .fr from France email addresses. What happened for that? And then we asked around the company. It turns out we had been written up in a French magazine, which is good to know, but not important enough to know to blow up my inbox with 1,000 messages. For routine work that's happening around the company where I just want to keep my pulse on it, send it to Pulse. For things that are relevant to a particular team only, we just route it directly to that particular team. And for anything where you think, okay, there's going to be a deterministic process where this email is going to come in, I'm going to make some quick decision based on that, then send it to a webhook. So here's a kind of trivial example of one of the webhooks I use. I keep 2 lists of them, one for my business use, one for my own personal use. This is a simple example of a hypothetical monitoring situation we could have in our app where, we get an email every couple hours from the monitoring solution saying, is your website up? And 99.9% of the time, that email is useless to me. It's saying the website is up. Well, great, I'm a decent engineer. The website should normally be up. When the website is not up, I want to hear about that right the heck now. So this just takes that webhook and translates it through the magic of Twilio into a call to me. By the way, I don't know who here has played with Twimlets, but Twimlets are some of the most powerful things that Twilio has ever published, which no one uses. Sorry, not no one uses, but it is insufficiently well known inside of Twilio and outside of Twilio that they exist. And they're awesome for internal use in particular. Like there's a Twimlet where you just provide it raw Twilio code and it can immediately do a call, which is totally stateless, which is great for monitoring scripts because if you're firing a monitoring script, something in your infrastructure is probably broken. So if you're using a Twimlet that's running on Twilio's infrastructure, it's unlikely that your stuff and Twilio stuff is going to be broken in the same way at the same time. So it's much more likely that that phone call actually makes it to you. By the way, fun little operational hint. Since Twilio makes it so easy to provision phone numbers, I provision a unique number for any sort of major source of incidents, and then I go into my iPhone and give it a unique ringtone. So that lets me know as soon as I hear the song what the likely source of that phone call is. So sometimes the calls are like really critical, sometimes a little less. So for example, Anything which like brings down the main revenue engine for the business causes the Ride of the Valkyries to play on my cell phone. You know, dun 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 dun. And that is played in business meetings before. And it's not embarrassing to me because the person I'm having the meeting with says, "Oh, you have a fun taste in classical music." But what I think when I hear Ride of the Valkyries is there's Nazis in my server. So here's my 5 favorite webhooks. I just copy paste these every time I want to do a new one. Sending an SMS. So if, for example, I have a hot sales deal which is going through, and it's like, okay, normally I don't do email at 7 o'clock in the evening, but if this several $100,000 sales comes through, this one time I will do an email at 7 o'clock in the evening. I pre-arranged to have a webhook when that person emails me the next time, and it just sends an SMS to me saying, "Hey, check your inbox, Paul got back to you." A phone call for things that urgently require my attention. Slacking things to the team for things that are like not too important, but maybe somebody should hear at some point. Slacking to the pulse. And so we talked a little bit earlier about the Sherlock Holmes scenario where it's important that something doesn't happen. The pattern is called a Deadman Switch. So instead of triggering when you do something, it triggers when that button has not been pushed in a while. So you can think of implementing these yourself by, okay, every time this webhook hits me, record somewhere in a database that the last webhook came in at 2 p.m., and then have a cron job that runs every minute and say if the last webhook was more than an hour ago, then escalate to phone call, escalate to SMS message. If you don't want to actually have to code that, or you're worried about whether your database will be up and accessible when these critical events are happening, just use this service called Deadman Switch. You can Google it on the internet. Best $15 I pay for every month. They send me an SMS message which gets upgraded by webhook into a phone call anytime our core backup fails or the main customer servicing agents on the website start to fail. Sorry, on the software product start to fail. So really like them, check it out. So eventually, you're going to reach the point in your inbox and getting email where it's just like one person can no longer deal with this. And the traditional solution is vertically scaling the inbox. If you aren't able to handle all your email, if you're not able to handle all the work that email represents, just spend more time on the business. But you can horizontally scale a Linux server an awful lot. You can add terabytes of RAM to it. You cannot add more than 24 hours a day. You shouldn't be adding much more time because you have vastly more important things to be doing in your business and in your life than in the inbox. What you're going to eventually want to do after you've eliminated all the email that you possibly can, you're routing it to your team, if it's still too much to deal with, you want to distribute that inbox over multiple people. How you're going to do that is going to depend largely on what the source of routine work is that's causing a lot of the email. Two which are very common and I think relevant to people in this room are customer service and sales. And so these are basically workflows that we have to deal with, right? It's something where there's enough of a process that, okay, a sale is going to go through, they're going to be at the lead state, and then they're going to move into the we're having serious discussion state, then they're going to move into the we have a contract with them state, and then they're going to move into the we're providing services state. We could do state management. But if you do that state management in your inbox, that's like doing, okay, I'm doing a Twilio app. Every time a request comes in, I'm just going to have the programmer manage the cookie for that request in their head for jollies. It only scales up until about 5 simultaneous processes, and then it fails hard. So for anything where you have a very deterministic workflow, you're probably going to want to have an app which is optimized for that workflow. Not to sell them, but these are the two I like the most. For a CRM, for something your sales team is going to be using, Close.io is wonderful. It's particularly got a great API that you can work with as developers. Flag me down anytime during the conference and ask me what Appointment Reminder does or what Starfighter does with Close, because we've been able to eliminate a huge amount of email and increase our close rates for the sales guys and for myself with less work. And our clients perceive us as, the wonderful thing is clients perceive you as being more responsive to them when I'm actually ignoring them for more hours of every day, which is exactly my desired outcome in life. For customer support, I use Snappy. I was not really happy with the first couple of CS solutions that we tried. This was something which our team really liked. It's as easy to use as email. And both of these can be used seamlessly from your own inbox for team members who are more comfortable with using Gmail than they are with using a new tool. But lets you route things pretty nicely. And again, great API integrations, which unfortunately I don't have enough time to talk about today because that would be an entire talk in itself. One of the things I like about both these solutions is that you can pipe a notification of like a new lead has entered the funnel, or a new ticket has come into the appropriate team's Slack room. And this is great for enabling pro-social behavior. For example, often your solutions will like do some sort of round-robin approach where, okay, next person up for a ticket is Cindy. And it turns out Cindy is actually out of the office today. If you send a message into Slack, totally automated message, which says, new ticket came in, help, I can't log into my account, assigned to Cindy, and someone notices, wait a minute, Cindy's out sick today, what will immediately happen in your Slack channel is someone will just type in, yeah, I'm on this, Cindy's out sick today. They'll jump on it, and then the team sees the update pipe to Slack, which is ticket resolved by Susan. And everybody will be like, Susan, great, nice job, which inculcates kind of the company culture you want, where people are sort of affirmatively making decisions for themselves that drive the business forward. It's rewarding Susan for being proactive, and it's helping everyone on the team stay less stressed and be a little bit more organized. And for adopting any of these sorts of things, I have my own habits for using the inbox. I have work strategies which work for me. And I recognize, after dealing with it for a while, that my employees, people I do business with, my customers, don't necessarily have my habits, and that my solution, the webhooks I've created, don't necessarily work for them. So for teams that have very processized approaches to business, you just say, okay, you do whatever works for you. At the end of the day, if you're in sales, I'm scoring you on the number of sales you generate. If you generate sales by being, dialing for dollars, 8 hours a day nonstop, doing 100 calls a day, and that works for you, great. If you do sales well by sending, 5 emails a day and just having really, really deep conversations with 5 people, and that works out for the numbers, great. You're going to be scored on the results, not on how you choose to do your job. And there's, something analogous that you could come up with for support. In particular, and you can run this by any support folks, I think they'll agree with you. The metric, how many tickets do you close in a day, is a poor metric to score support people on, because that encourages them to do rapid fire, kind of cursory, oh yeah, we're aware that that's a problem. Oh, sorry, you felt that way, yada yada, which doesn't really resolve the customer's issues. So figure out some way to score your support people on making fanatically happy customers. And do it outside of your inbox, because that will save all of your sanities. So I really love hearing from people. There's a Twilio-powered instant survey, so if this presentation was useful for you or not useful for you, please tell me. This is my best email address right now, patrick@starfighters.io. Again, if you're looking to hire engineers, I would love to do matchmaking for you on that. If you're an engineer, drop me a line. In 4 to 6 weeks, I'll get it. Later, I'm going to get in touch with you and say when our first game is ready. And I'm on Twitter. And by the way, I tell this to everybody, but I'm on Twitter, and Twitter actually does ping me. So if you ever send me an email and I don't get back to you, you can always resend, send a ping on the email, or you can just ping me on Twitter and say, hey, did you get to the email with subject line blah, blah, blah. And then I'll just search for it and get to it. Wish more people took me up on that. I literally have a, on the contact us page, successful strategies for getting a response, which is something that I encourage all of you to do. It's not just for people who get lots of email. People appreciate when you communicate your expectations with them, and then you deliver on the expectations that you've set up. And so if you take nothing else out of the presentation, I would take that. You can teach people to email you better. You can teach your team to use it better. You can teach yourself to use it better. Thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the rest of the conference.